Hi, my name is Ebony and this is part 2 of my weight loss journey. I want to pick up where I left off, and I think I remember the last thing I was telling you guys was about how much I weighed right before graduating college. And at that time I mentioned to you that I weighed 275 pounds. Yeah, that's how much I weighed. And after I graduated college, I lost weight slowly, but I did. And I believe it was because of the fact that I was no longer surviving off college food and fast food. After college, I was still babysitting, but also got back into retail full time. Having those types of jobs where you're physically active, the weight began to slowly fall off. Around the same time, I had began a medication for a pre-existing liver condition. That medicine had a side effect of loss of appetite, among many other side effects. In between May of 2009 and February or March of 2010, I lost 45 pounds. I actually lost 45 pounds over the course of 9 months. I saw a little bit of the connection of reducing highly processed, sugary foods that I had in college. I mean, I had a lot of things available to me that just weren't good for me. They tasted good and they kept me happy, but they kept me fat and ignorant in a sense. Some of those foods cause brain fog, and I didn't know then like I know now, but they do. So I went from 275 pounds to 230 pounds. And in that same year that I reached 230 pounds, I started dating my husband, and then we got married, and then about 3 months after we got married, I found out I was pregnant. Actually, 4 months. Okay. Well, I found out 4 months after we got married that I was pregnant, but I think I was pregnant like at least maybe 3 weeks before I realized that I was pregnant. So I got married, got pregnant. During my pregnancy, I was eating terribly, and I gained about 35 pounds. And I lost 17 pounds after my pregnancy, and then the remaining 18 just held on, or I held on to it. But either way, it was on there and it stayed for a while up until I started seeing a nutritionist in 2012. But the reason for me seeing a nutritionist wasn't because of that remaining 18 pounds. I was afraid I was going to end up like my mother, who didn't really take care of herself. And it was in my preteens that I really started noticing things that weren't good, whether it be from her eating habits or just odd behaviors that just contributed to the downfall of her health. I was 10 years old when she was diagnosed with diabetes. When I was 17, she had heart failure. And around this time, she was trying to get sober from abusing narcotics and alcohol. Well, I would say more so narcotics. She hadn't been drinking, I think, since I was 10 maybe. And but on and off over the years she had been using narcotics, and they contributed to just a whole lot of problems. And I saw her deal with all of that. I saw her deal with all the problems that came with it, including detox and just the whole nastiness of it. And of course, I've never touched a drug like that in my life unless it was prescribed, when I had wisdom tooth removal. But even then, once the pills were done, they were done. I've seen my mother suffer from so much, especially obesity related and past drug use. And she had liver cirrhosis, she had heart failure, diabetes, hypertension, diabetic nerve pain, she had high water retention, to where she would gain about 50 to 60 pounds in a matter of 4 to 6 weeks. I've seen her in and out of nursing facilities for rehab to get all of that water weight off of her body. It was a lot to see, and I dealt with the most of it during college, and in the middle of finals week and getting calls about my mother being in the hospital again. And it got worse and worse after college, and I had a newborn, and then I was still looking after her, and we were going through a hard time too then, so we were living with her. It was a lot. The burden of constant fear and worry and even some anger was always present, and it wasn't because I thought of her as an inconvenience. Nothing of the sort. It was more so because I was responsible for her, and I felt so helpless, and yet I was still under her authority because she was my mother. And even though I was an adult, I still had an authoritative respect for her. I looked up to her as my mother. You know, it was always me and her for the longest. It wasn't until 4 days after her 66th birthday that her misery was over.